Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to be here with you again and see all your beautiful faces. Karen, it was beautiful again. The choir, the singing, the chanting was just amazing. You know, as I was listening to the chanting, I was thinking to myself, it was just so beautiful. And the thought came to me, I know sometimes we have beautiful leaders, whether it's center leaders, colony leaders, chanting leaders, choir leaders. And when they go, there's sort of the sadness, like how could anyone fill their shoes? But you guys are amazing, and thank you for your leadership in that way. It was really, really beautiful. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the subject this morning, and as I was meditating earlier today, I thought when I was thinking about the infinite Christ, actually this vision came into my mind about the cover of the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, Yogananda's teachings enlarged upon by Swamiji and Kriyananda, and that face, those eyes that are on the cover of the Masters just went right in my heart. And there was so much in that. Looking up here now, I see his picture again. There's so much in those eyes. Compassion and joy and power and all the things we were singing about today. And it just moved me so much. I think the one that really moved me was compassion. I think when we go through our lives, as we often do, as devotees and introspecting, we see all those little things that niggle away at us and we wish weren't there, and will Master still love me? Why did I do that for? And how did I get involved in that? Why did I say that? And it all came together in those eyes this morning. In his face is just compassion. There is nothing we can do that will take his love from us. And it's so deep. When we read in the readings today, when virtue declines and vice predominates, I will incarnate. That's not an easy thing for anyone to say. I will incarnate. I'll go through, just like the festival says, suffering and pain and death, all for us, all to say, I'm here for you. I will be here for you. The infinite Christ within. He came to show us that it's within, but also he's there, always there. And when we feel like the bottom has dropped out, he's holding on to us up here, just up by our little blouse or whatever. He's holding us up. He's holding us up this way. He's lifting us up that way. He will never let us go. And there's a beautiful book that Swami Kriyananda wrote called The New Dispensation. And it's about the avatar. It's about our master. It's about this mission. More than just the person of who Yogananda was, but the mission that he brought. He talks about this great, every once in a while, in the great cosmos of Maya or misunderstanding or delusion, there's a great calm that comes. And in that calm, the avatar is able to come down. He comes down because of the call of, in the time of Jesus, the call of the Jews. They were the chosen people because they prayed together. They had that power of saying, I can't do this alone, I need help. But one little line, I'm not sure what it's in, Raised in the Same Light maybe. He says something like, but they only understood enough as if they would touch the hem of his garment. They didn't understand the overreaching power that this great man, the Son of God, would have. They only could get enough of what they could see, but not to take it within so much. Of course, there were people that did, but the great majority was just calling to God to relieve their suffering, to bring a king, to end whatever sorrow they were going through, but not to understand that it's going within where all suffering ends. No matter who's in charge, no matter what they're going through, they can find that joy, that peace, that happiness within them, their own selves. And so Yogananda came in this great period of calm in the cosmos, so that he could be and was and is the avatar for this age, because he understands energy, he understands what we need in this day and age. And so he brought us these amazing teachings. I don't know how many times you think of where you are and what you're doing now, what you're doing with your life. But I was just talking to Asha the other day about the grandeur of what we have. How could this one little body with so many mistakes and so many misunderstandings and whatever it is, have the grace, the karma to find this path? It's overwhelming to me sometimes because it's such an extraordinary path of compassion, of power, of joy, of love. How have we drawn that? Well, we've drawn it through the love. You know, I was thinking there are some people that go out there, like this friend of mine, I'm going to tell you in a minute, and they just will claw the universe to get something better. They will put out so much energy because they're so unhappy and they're going to make something happen in their lives. And they find God that way. They find this path that way. And then there's those of us who just sort of go along and you sort of feel like something's not quite right, but you don't maybe have that energy that we were talking about. But you know what? You have the karma. So boom, master lands in your lap. And then you go, oh, that's what I was looking for. There's all kinds of ways of finding him. But if he's ours, all you have to do is be yourself. He will find you. He knows you're there. He knows what's in your heart. I have a very dear friend, Brinde. Some of you know her. She came to Ananda many, many years ago. And then she left for karmic reasons, of course, for 25 years. And she came back a few years ago. And she has this delightful story I wanted to share with you. She has a blog. It was on the blog. It was around Christmas time. And she was telling a story about her grandma, Mama Hetty. And she had a very unhappy childhood, and she was living with her grandmother. And her grandmother took her to church. And I know when I was a child in Sunday school, we sang this little song, Jesus loves me, for the Bible tells me so. Do any of you remember that? Jesus loved me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Well, she was talking about that song. But Brinde's got a little spice in her. And even at 7 years old, she went back to Grandma Hetty and said, you mean to tell me that I'm supposed to believe that just because the Bible tells me so, Jesus is in my life? Why? There's got to be something more. And the disciples of Jesus experienced God, not just because someone told them. They experienced God. It was a little kid, but that's the way she is now too. She's a fighter. And so she was talking about the long meditation that we have at Christmas time, and she was in there. And someone was playing the chant, God of beauty is now reigning in the temple of my heart. And she goes through God of love, God of beauty, God of peace. And all of a sudden, this remembrance came into her mind, because all of a sudden this power came into her, and she experienced God in that moment. And what she's saying, I love it here. She said, now when meditating since that day, I feel that he is being fed by the meditation and devotion of my love for him, that I am giving him the nourishment he needs to keep growing strong within me. An interesting way of looking at it. God doesn't really need anything from us, does he? Except, Master says, our love. And this is her way of saying that. But this experience of God, this knowing that he is within us is very, very important. Swamiji talks quite a bit about attunement with the guru, attunement with your teacher, to go in. How do we do that? How do we become attuned so that we can become like him, a perfect being, a perfect example? There's many ways. One of the most beautiful ways is just try to emulate what he does, what he says, how he is with people. Am I being kind? Just being kind. Can I go out of my way to be kind? When I have a negative thought, can I just stop it and move on? Can I, what does Master say? When other people are just sitting, talking around, go into the garden and do a few kriyas. Go into the garden and meditate and think of him. Bring him into every single thing that you do. How can we make a difference in the world? I read a really beautiful story the other day, and this was interesting. Recently we've had a group at the meditation retreat. Vidura and I work at the meditation retreat at Ananda Village. And this was a group of 22 Jewish priestesses. And that's another story altogether. But what's interesting is that here we are, we have our temple, and they were there in the middle, and they were doing their practices and loving God. And so it was Shabbat, is that how you say it? So Friday night is their special night, and so we wanted to make them a special dinner, so we did. We had beet borscht and latkes and applesauce and sour cream and apple pie. Anyway, we made this special meal for them, and it reminded me of this story because of the Jewish aspect to it. And please forgive me, I know I'm going to get this wrong. But there's this holiday called Hanukkah that I know you all know. And I don't completely understand it, but I do understand that it's a festival of light. And I think what it is that God, the Jews were told that they had to keep these candles going and keep so the light of God would be there. At some point, the oil went out of the candles and there was darkness, but God kept the candles going. And it's a celebration that God is always there. But in this story, this man says, but there's more to it than that. There's more to it than that. Let there be light, he says, also means that it's in us. Let there be light, that light is within us and is up to us to share that light, to give that light, to understand that we have light within us no matter what has happened in our lives. It is there and it behooves us to share it. In the Patanjali lessons, Swamiji writes, the only way to overcome the ego is to serve. Why? What is that? Why do we serve? Because it gets us out of ourselves. It gets us out of this ego thinking of someone else. A very important part of our path. Because yes, we have to meditate to feel that, but we have to serve. We have to give. And Swamiji talks about being a transmitting station. But he says not just for people. And this sort of ties into your weekend this week, yesterday with Vidura and Shanti and all of you, is he says you also have to be a transmitting station to everything around you, the trees, the plants, the flowers, and just feel that unity that keeps us all together. In the Whispers reading today about all the different channels that God comes through, we are all so united. I came upon this speech that Martin Luther King gave 1967 at Christmas time, and it was a speech he gave about peace. And of course he was talking about racial equality, and but he was talking about this interconnectedness that we have to feel. And he was saying, in fact, maybe I'll just read it because it's really fun. You get up in the morning and go to the bathroom and reach over for the sponge, and that's handed to you by the Pacific Islanders. You reach for a bar of soap, and that's given to you in the hands of a Frenchman. And then you go into the kitchen to drink your coffee for the morning, and that's poured into your cup by a South American. And maybe you want tea. That's poured into your cup by a Chinese. Or maybe you're desirous of having cocoa, and that's poured into your cup by a West African. And then you reach over for your toast, and that's given to you the hands of an English-speaking farmer, not to mention the baker. And before you finish eating breakfast in the morning, you've depended on more than half the world. Isn't that wonderful? And so this interconnectedness that we must feel, if I have a great sorrow in the world, aside from the evil that's happening, is the rainforest. That one really gets to me, and I'm always giving, to save the rainforest. This interconnectedness, when we feel like we need wood, so we just chop down a tree, we don't think about anything else. When we need, sustenance, we kill things without the need to kill. Just everything, not feeling that connectedness to life will hold us back. There's many times during the purification ceremony when you say, open your heart to me, and sometimes your mind is just like you feel Master just saying, open your heart, open your heart, open your heart, because you know that once that heart is open, it's all going to be fine. And when you have any blocks there, it's going to hold us back. Opening that heart, feeling that connection with each other, going out of the way to calm people or to laugh with people or to help people will make that integration possible. We are all needed in this world. No matter what we think, we are all needed, we're all dependent upon each other, and we all need to give to each other. I read a story the other day that I want to share with you about making a difference. And this is a story about a woman who had worked in pediatrics all her life, 40 years or all her adult life. And she had worked with the teeny, tiny babies that weren't going to live, and she helped them find a way to live. And then she got to the point when she was older that she was more in the office, and she had to handle all the papers, and she had to talk to the different hospitals to urge them to help these little children. There weren't enough funds, and she got so discouraged that she just wanted to quit. And then she was in this doctor's office, and she was telling her all this. And the doctor had this little dried up starfish. And she just had things around the office, and people would go, and sometimes they would hold things. And she noticed that this woman was holding very gently this starfish. And so at the end of it, she said to her, do you know what you're doing? You know what you're holding? And she looked down, and she said, why do you think you're holding it? She said, I don't know. But she said, I know it matters. And she said, well, come back next week, and maybe you'll think of why it matters. So at the end of the day, she got a knock on her door, and the woman comes in. She says, I know. And she came in, and she said, there's a story about this man, old man, and he was walking along the beach, and he would discover these little starfish on the beach, and they were starting to dry out. They were starting to die. And so he would pick them up, and he would gently throw them back into the ocean. And he did this, walking along, he would see one, and he would put it back. And then this jogger came by, this young man, and he said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm just saving this life because it's drying up, it's going to die, and I'm putting it back in the ocean. And he started laughing, and he said, old man, he said, do you know how many hundreds of these little starfish are on this beach? And do you know how many thousands of beaches there are in the world? He said, what makes you think it matters? And so he jogged on. Then the man's walking down the beach, and he finds another one, and he picks it up, and he sort of says, well, it makes a difference to him. And he put it back in we can do something that makes a difference. This woman, when she was telling the story, she said, you know, I might not do what I did before, but when I make that phone call, I realize that, yeah, that one phone call could make a difference. There's a story in the trilogy of Master that Durga Mata, most of it she wrote. And she says that Yogananda would always say to share your light, do something with your life. And she said, but I'm just painting gold leaf on these towers at SRF. I'm just what difference does that make? And he said, you'll know in time. And so some years later, I believe after he passed away, people would start talking to her and saying, I don't know what it is about those towers, but that gold attracted me, and I never would have come if I hadn't seen that beauty and that gold. We don't know what impact we have on other people. But if we just do what the Master's asking us to do, no matter what it is, if we give it to Him, if we make it holy, if we make it spiritual, if we say thank you for whatever it is, in time we may or may not know what we're doing, but somehow we feel it within our heart. And the great ones say, or masters said, we are very, very close to finding. And even when we don't think that, even when we've made mistakes, we're here in this room. Many of us dedicated our lives to finding God and to helping other people find God. It says we're this close. We're this close. So just keep doing what you're doing. Keep being a channel of light in this world. And it doesn't even necessarily have to make sense. Just do what the Master says. Just have that faith that He will instill in your mind and in your heart your next steps and what's right for you. God bless you.